Okay, so we're going to get started. Welcome to Building High-Performing Remote Teams. We're going to be focusing today on building team cohesion, building a healthy team climate, and building team well-being. And so we have a very full hour where you're going to get a number of strategies, a number of tools, so that you can hit the ground running tomorrow and help ensure your team is even stronger than it already is. And I know that so many of you now are experiencing a lot of challenges given the environment that we're working in. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you. I know how difficult it is leading teams right now. And we have team members with differing needs, differing levels of stress, different experiences right now with COVID. And as leaders, we need to have very broad shoulders to support our teams. And so my hope for you is that you walk away from this webinar with some very practical tools that you can use not only to help your team, but to help yourself remove some of the struggle that you're likely experiencing as we're dealing with this pandemic. So before we jump into the content, I just want to share a little bit about me and who we are. So my company is a family business that was started in the early 80s. And since then, for over 30 years, we've been solely focused on helping teams and leaders to really tap into the best of themselves. We believe that work shouldn't be a struggle, right? It feels like a struggle right now. We're in very unique circumstances. We believe that work should be challenging, but it shouldn't be a struggle every day. And so our passion is helping teams and leaders to remove the struggle so that they can achieve exceptional results far more easily and with joy, right? We want to enjoy the journey. So we've written a number of books on team and leadership performance. The two highlighted there are the books that I've co-authored. If any of you happen to be in healthcare, the Improving Healthcare Team Performance book is required reading at a number of postgraduate Masters of Health Leadership programs. And I share this with you so that you know that everything that I'm sharing with you on this webinar is based on over 30 years of research. I'm just gonna let you know that I'm gonna keep checking the chat. Oh, somebody told me that they just got their copy of Winner Instinct today. Woohoo! Thank you for letting me know. That's awesome. So let me go back to where I was. Sorry, I lost the plot here. So like I said, it's based on everything that I'm sharing with you is based on 30 years of research. And we've been asking this one question and answering this one question over and over for 30 years, which is what's the difference, right? What's the difference between exceptional teams that achieve exceptional results with ease and those that struggle to keep up? And through our research, we found that those teams that perform well with ease aren't, teams that work really hard, any harder than any other teams. They're not teams that just got lucky and just happened to have the right group of people pulled together. Sometimes there's an element of luck, but that's nowhere near the difference. The difference in our research is that we found that high-performing teams focus on a core set of behaviors and practices that when they focus on them and demonstrate them consistently, enable them to thrive far more easily. And when we apply these practices to average performing teams and struggling teams or teams that are in crisis, we find that their performance improves quite quickly. And the more they sustain those behaviors, the more easily they're able to perform and tap into the best of themselves. So what I'll be sharing with you today is based on that research and based on some of those behaviors and practices tailored for remote teams. Because these behaviors and practices are just as essential, if not more so, in remote teams when, as you know, we don't have the luxury of the informal catch up at the side of somebody's desk or grabbing a coffee together or having impromptu meetings on the fly as we, walk down the hall. So this session is really focused on remote teams and applying those practices. So what are you going to walk away with? You're going to learn how to, improve the performance of your team, not just during COVID, right? This is hopefully a temporary situation. We don't know how long we're going to be working through this crisis. We will come out of it. And so the tools that you're gaining today are not just to be used during COVID. You can apply them when you're back in the office, right? So this is really to hone your overall leadership and team development approach. This is also about helping you and your team to identify what's most important right now. Where are you going? What are your top priorities? And what are the behaviors and practices that are most essential to your team in achieving that? And how are you going to hold each other accountable? Today is also about learning how to clarifying expectations and establishing those new practices. You're going to get one of my favorite tools, for those of you who have worked with me before, called Team Agreements. And so you're going to be getting that tool. And you're going to learn how to build cohesion and community. Community right now, as you know, since we're all so isolated, is essential right now. And it's also about practicing and modeling self-care, which we're going to touch on today. So a lot to get through, so let's get started. Now I want to start by hearing from you, and I don't think you can all see what comes up in chat, but please do me a favor. I would really love to hear from you as to what your biggest challenges are leading remote teams right now, or leading your teams right now as leaders. And then I'll share with you what I'm hearing from the leaders that I work with. So if you wouldn't mind popping into chat the biggest challenges that you're facing right now as leaders, and then I'll share them as they come in. Okay, and as we wait, oh, here's one. As we wait, disengagement. Absolutely, disengagement is a big challenge right now as well, because so many people have other issues and challenges that they're facing and adjusting to working from home, right? So this overwhelm and workload can definitely affect the level of engagement, right? Maintaining connection, clarifying priorities, somebody is saying, Stephen. Anne is saying team building remotely. Absolutely. How do we build that, the development and keep people motivated, right? Shanae was saying keeping the team motivated and not overwhelmed. Managing home and work, right? So many different challenges right now on top of all of the work that we're doing navigating COVID. So everything that you've shared just now with me is really in alignment with these top concerns, which all affect engagement. So I want to address these for you as we move through the session. Okay. So let's start then. I want to introduce you to those behaviors and practices. All right. These are the behaviors and practices, the 7 areas that we have found have the biggest impact on a team's ability to perform at their best. And I'm going to focus on 2 practices or 2 elements in particular, but really this whole session touches on each and every one of these. But I'm not going to do a deep dive into all of them. We're just going to touch on 2. So we're going to be looking at healthy climate, the health of your team's climate, the degree of trust and respect, right? And that sense of value and psychological safety is the foundation of a high-performing team, and is even more important now when we're feeling disjointed and disconnected and overwhelmed. So we're going to look at that in relation to building a remote team. Cohesiveness. We're going to be starting with this element. Cohesiveness. Your team is cohesive when they're pulling together in the same direction towards a common goal. And as I said, teams are feeling disjointed, right? And so how do you as a leader ensure teams are focused on the right goals, on the right priorities, and the right behaviors and practices, and also understand who's doing what right now? So we're going to focus on that. The other elements are important, but Given we only have an hour, we're not going to do a deep dive. So innovative thinking is all about how the degree to which your team members consciously choose to think differently, to look for new and different ways of achieving their goals. It measures the degree to which your team members challenge the status quo and challenge assumptions, right? This is essential for organizations to continue to evolve and stay ahead of the pack. And the degree to which team members feel comfortable rocking the boat and challenging the status quo and looking for different ways to do things has a direct impact on performance. But the health of your climate, you cannot be innovative and rock the boat and challenge without that trust and respect and assuming a positive intent of one another. So we won't be looking at innovative thinking, but some of the practices that you gain will help you strengthen that type of creative thinking or critical thinking. Team members' contribution is all about strengthening engagement. It's about team members being proactive and offering help and going above and beyond their job description, okay? When you lead a team effectively, you're going to strengthen engagement. So when you apply these practices that you're getting, you're going to ultimately strengthen engagement. Group work skills, this next element, another term for this element is meeting effectiveness, right? And we will be strengthening this element at the end of this webinar. The way in which you come together, whether it's on a teleconference or a virtual meeting, a video conference, has a direct impact on how your teams perform after that meeting. And the goal is to spend less time in meetings and accomplish more. People are feeling so overwhelmed by technology right now and sitting in front of their computer screen from one Zoom meeting or WebEx meeting to the next. We want to reduce that, but make the time together more impactful. And then change compatibility, we won't be touching on that, but this is the degree to which your team members are able to be open and responsive to change, regardless of whether they agree with it or not. And the way in which you lead your team, the way in which you hold your meetings, the health of your climate, and the clarity around what your team is working towards and their connection to that, all has a direct impact on their ability to be open to and responsive to change. So again, we're not doing a deep dive into that, but you will, when you apply the tools from this webinar, you will ultimately strengthen your team members' ability to be flexible and open to change. And then finally, the seventh element is all about all shoulders to the wheel, right? Shared leadership requires that team members participate, that the leader step outside of the center of the circle and engage and empower others to step up and take on more and leverage the unique skills and expertise and experiences of the team. This requires coaching from the leader, right? This requires trust. And everybody, you know, it's all shoulders to the wheel right now. And you build trust when you demonstrate that you trust and value other people's skills and experiences. So again, while we're not doing a deep dive into that element, we're looking at trust. And when you build trust, you build shared leadership. So those are the 7 elements that this whole session is based on, okay? And in part of your tools that you'll get at the end, you're going to get an overview and as well as an exercise on how to use them, okay? All right, so let's jump into the guiding principles of leading a remote team. These 4 principles underpin everything we're talking about today. And so let's start with structure, okay? Your team members no longer, of course, have the same structure that they had when they were at work. And that's part of the overwhelm that people are experiencing right now, is trying to juggle so many things during the day, whether you're homeschooling, whether you're caring for somebody, trying to figure out how you're going to get groceries, right? The day feels like it's discombobulated, at least it does for me. And it is made up of back-to-back Zoom meetings in between trying to get my kids some snacks or, you know, do other things while working from home. And so the more structure you can create in your meetings, in your virtual meetings, in how decisions are made, in how you're communicating, the easier it will be for your team members to participate when you're together virtually. The more you can support your teams in creating a structure for their day and also working within their own schedules as well, the better. And so some of the tools I'm going to be sharing with you today provide you with that structure for your team meetings in particular, okay? I'm also going to be sharing with you at the end of this session access to an e-learning course that does a full deep dive into all of this, where you would gain more information around how to create structure. Now, community. This needs to be top of mind for you, the leader, okay? Top of mind. How am I, as the leader, creating a sense of team, creating a sense of community that we had back at the office? How do we create that virtually? So I'm going to be sharing some ways for you to do that on this webinar. The third piece that you need to keep top of mind is communication. Now is the time to over communicate. Okay, now is not the time to pull back. Those of us who have a tendency of not sharing a lot of information or only as needed, we need to check ourselves and ask, what information does my team need? What would be helpful for them? What might they be missing now and not getting that they used to get? And so we're going to be looking at how to clarify what your team members need, what level of communication is effective for your team, given their unique styles and personalities. And by over communicating, I don't mean sending, more emails, right? It's the quality of communication, just as much as the quantity, if not more so, right? The way we're communicating, the way we're having conversation in our meetings has a direct impact on your remote team's effectiveness. And then finally, care and compassion. And this is about self-care, right? And compassion for self, and being patient with yourself, and letting yourself off the hook and not, striving for perfection, okay? And this is also about care and compassion for your team members, and really stepping into the shoes of each of your team members and understanding the experiences each of them are having right now, and modeling and practicing self-care to support them, and being patient. And so we're going to be looking at that today too. So all of these are interwoven and need to be top of mind as you lead your team. How am I creating structure? How am I creating community? Are we communicating in a way that's really creating dialogue and engagement and participation? And am I demonstrating care and compassion? Okay, so that needs to be top of mind. So let's jump in to cohesiveness. This is one of the 7 elements that I touched on a few minutes ago. So cohesiveness is all about, like I said, your team members pulling in the same direction towards a common goal. So cohesiveness not only requires agreement on where the team is going, and not just agreement, but connection to that, and being passionate and motivated to achieve that goal. So it requires the goal, but it also requires understanding of and commitment to how the team is going to achieve that goal. And by how, I mean, are they clear? Are your team members clear on what must take priority right now? Are your team members clear on the values, on the roles and responsibilities? So the entire process for achieving that goal must be understood and committed to. So we're going to do a little bit of a check to see how cohesive your teams are right now. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And I don't need to know the answer to these questions, but I'd like to know how quickly you're able to answer them for yourselves. And so if you feel comfortable, when you're able to answer one of these questions, put up your hand, do a high five, or like raise your hand, or put yes into chat, or got it into chat, okay? So here's your first question. What does success look like for your team? Okay. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm not sure if I have your name correct, but thank you, right? What does success look like for your team? And does it look different now than it did 5 weeks ago? Or maybe even 3 weeks ago? What is it that your team is striving for right now? Now, the degree to which, how quickly you can answer this tells you how connected you and your team are to the goal. If you're not able to answer what success looks like right now, then chances are your team members aren't. And think about the risk in your team members not knowing exactly what they're working towards right now. And team members too, the role of your department may have changed, or your team may have changed given COVID, right? Anne is saying high performing team, high cohesiveness, high productivity output. Awesome. That's what success looks like for Anne's team, right? Success for your team might look different, but your team may have also changed. The responsibilities may have changed. And so if you're being deployed to do other things right now, what is success? If you're now part of some task forces, what does success look like for that task force? So in the context of cohesiveness and everything you're learning today, think not only about the team that you're leading, but also the task forces and cross-functional teams and committees that you're on, right? Jeremy is saying in chat, we had to completely drop what we were doing and support practices with COVID, right? So your role changes and that shakes up your goals. And people will not be using their time well if they don't know what they're working towards. All right, next question. So if you don't have the answer to this, this is where you start. All right, and I'm going to show you how you can start. The next question, same rules apply. What are your team's top 3 priorities for achieving success during this crisis? What are the top 3 priorities? And by priorities, I don't necessarily mean tasks and initiatives. Actually, I don't mean tasks and initiatives. By priorities, I mean, is safety a priority? Is quality a priority? Is customer service a priority? Is team member well-being or team effectiveness a priority? What are the overarching priorities that you will then align your tasks and initiatives to? Right? And again, if you, okay, great, Shanae is saying health and safety of team and clients. Awesome, right? That's a clear priority and everything would be aligned to that. And so the risk in not knowing is that, again, your team members will be pulling in different directions, wasting time and energy, which we do not have right now, on tasks and initiatives that won't lead the team directly to its common goal. And so another question I have is, if you were to ask your team, what do you think our team's top 3 priorities are right now? Would their answers be aligned or would they share different things? So I'm going to share with you how you can go about resetting and realigning your team. Okay? Great. So my next question, are the roles and responsibilities for each team member clear, understood, and respected by all? Now, usually they are, in my experience, unless with certain types of teams in certain industries like healthcare, this can be trickier given the interprofessional teams. But generally teams, like a marketing team or a technology team, the roles are clear. Where this gets muddy is in task forces, cross-functional teams, especially when we create them in crisis. And there's a sense of urgency and it's all hands on deck, go, this is what our task force needs to do. Lines get blurred. We're not always really clear, is that my job or is that John's job? I thought I was doing that. And so it's really essential to be clear and continue coming back to who's doing what and how are we aligning ourselves in our responsibilities to what we're here to achieve. And keep coming back to the goal, to the priorities, to our roles, because setting it once 5 weeks ago, lots has changed, right? A lot has changed and things are moving quickly. And so that's when people can go rogue, right? And feathers can get ruffled, and we may be going in the wrong direction if we're not bringing people back to our original goal. Is this the same goal that we had 5 weeks ago? Is this the right goal? Okay. Do we need to evolve? And do our roles need to evolve? And then finally, which behaviors and practices are most important to your team's effectiveness during this crisis? So I asked you, some of you shared what are your priorities, right? Your priorities will in part drive the behaviors and practices. So if safety is a priority, well, how do we need to work in order to be safe, right? How do I need to care for my team members to ensure that they're safe? And the behaviors and practices, right, that were most important 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago may not be the same behaviors and practices that are essential right now for your team. We're working remotely, right? So patience and compassion are likely behaviors that are needed more now. They're always needed, but even more so now. And so is your team clear? Have you had that conversation? Have you clarified expectations around how we're going to work together, right? Okay, I'm just checking chat, right? Team member well-being, customer service, effective collaboration. Absolutely, those are great examples, okay? So those are the questions that you and your team not only need to answer consistently together and have the similar answers, if not the same, ideally the same, but this isn't just about checking a box and being able to rhyme off what success looks like and what our top 3 priorities are and walk around with the mug that says it all. This is also about being connected to that goal. This is about feeling a sense of purpose and motivation around why I'm here and how I'm contributing to that goal, and knowing how I contribute and being empowered to do so, right, through these behaviors and practices that are most important. So let's look at how we can create that for your team. So, like I said, we've sort of been working remotely, 5 weeks now? I'm losing track of time. But now is a good time to do a team reset meeting. Whether it's your task force or your intact team that you've been leading before COVID, bring your team back together for the purpose of a team reset meeting. And I call this for some teams, your opportunity to reset, refocus, and recharge. So let me share with you what the purpose of a team reset meeting is. And you're going to get through this webinar, right now you're going to get the recording of this, and you'll have, these slides to help you through this. In the e-course, you would get a complete facilitator guide, handouts, and all of your team activities. But rest assured, you have what you need here to begin to develop your reset meeting. So the purpose is bring your team together and first of all, acknowledge the current state. And by acknowledge the current state, this is a really great time to show appreciation, right? If you don't do this regularly, which I'm going to assume you do, show appreciation for your team members, this is also an opportunity to sort of do it more formally, to show appreciation and recognition for the stress and evolution and flux and complexity that your team members have been working in, and thanking them and showing appreciation for their great work. Then you can move into having a conversation around, all right, in order for us to continue to thrive or to do even better than we already are, let's check in on where we need to go. What does success look like for us? And ask the question, what do you think we're working towards right now? Or what should we be working towards right now? or as the leader, share what you believe the team is working towards, what the goal is, and re-clarify that and ask for input around that, right? Reconnect people to what success looks like. And then do the same thing around priorities. Okay, this is what success looks like for us right now in this crisis. What are our top 3 priorities that we need to be fanatically focused on in order to achieve that goal, in order to achieve success, right? Do you need to clarify roles and responsibilities? Now's the time to do it, especially in task forces, right? Take the time to clarify expectations around what team members need in order to make the best decisions, to communicate, to support each other, and then develop some new team norms, which we're going to talk about in a minute, okay? So let's take a look at what I mean by clarifying expectations. So likely, I'm hoping, 5 weeks ago, you brought the team together after you started working remotely to say, all right, how are we going to communicate? How are we going to make decisions? And if you didn't do it then, no problem, do it now. Clarify them. And if you did do them 5 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, it's good to check back in, right? So needs change. People may be getting more accustomed to working from home. They may be, tired or overwhelmed with the way you have been communicating, and things need to start to shift now that we get a sense of what it feels like to work from home together but separately. Our needs may change. So it's important to check back in. So clarify expectations again and check in on, is the way we're communicating working? What do we need to do differently? What's not working? What is working? It's also important to check in on how decisions are being made, especially, and I'm going to keep saying this, with committees or task forces, where you're maybe making decisions with a group of people you've never had to make decisions with before, right? This particular group and dynamic and personalities, right? So check in on the decision. Is the way we're making decisions effective? In the e-course, we do a complete leading virtual team meetings section where I walk you through how to achieve consensus. What are the different decision-making structures and how to use them, and share some tools with you, okay? How can we best support each other? What do you need right now? How are we going to keep a sense of community? What do you need from me, your leader, right? What's most important for us to keep top of mind? So check back in through a reset meeting. Now, your reset meeting is also a really great time to develop team agreements. And like I said, if you've worked with me, and there are a number of people I think on here who have, I'm obsessed with team agreements because they work. Okay, so team agreements are a set of behaviors and practices that your team members identify as being essential to your team's effectiveness. So if you lead a technology team with a certain set of needs and dynamics, your team agreements are going to look different than, your counterpart perhaps in marketing or sales, whose offices are just down the hall. They're going to have a different set of team agreements than you, okay, because they'll have different needs. They're a different group of people. And developing these with your team members helps them identify, this is what I think we need to do more of, or this is what's missing and we need to start doing this to be even better than we already are. Or C, this is working really well and we need to make sure we keep doing it. Okay? So I'm going to walk you through how you develop them, because the way in which you develop them has a big impact on its effectiveness. And you can do this in your team reset meeting, or if you don't want to have a team reset meeting, just develop team agreements, okay? This is designed for you, this webinar. You can pick and choose what's going to work with your team. And if you walk away with only doing one thing, try team agreements, okay? So in your team reset meeting or in an upcoming meeting, you introduce this concept to your team and you ask them to complete this sentence, okay? In order to be the best possible team during this crisis, we need to do what? Or in order to be an even stronger team than we already are through this crisis, We need to. And ask each team member to complete that sentence. And at the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you a facilitator guide, okay, a complete guide that you can use to lead the development of team agreements with your team. So don't worry about taking all these notes because you're going to have your guide, okay? And so I'm going to show you an example of a set of team agreements. So you ask, and hopefully you're doing this on video conference, you ask everybody to share, you capture them, and then you come to agreement on no more than 7 at the most. I like 5, but this team that I led this with came to, I think there's 2, 4, 7, okay? So these are what they identified as most important to their team, okay? We agree to keep meetings to 50 minutes, 25, etc. So if they have an hour meeting, it's actually scheduled for 50 minutes. If it's a 30-minute meeting, it's scheduled for 25 minutes, and they respect that time. And they shorten it so that they have 10 minutes for a bio break, 10 minutes to go for a walk, or to grab a cup of tea, or to read a story to their kid, right? So let's respect people's time, and this is an example of how this team has chosen to do that. We agree to have a clear objective for each meeting. They found that they were spinning their wheels in their meetings, okay? And they really needed to apply structure to their meetings as opposed to just flying off the side of their hip kind of thing. So at the end of this webinar, you're going to get an agenda template that I call the Vital Agenda that will help you apply structure and get the most out of your team meeting. We agree to respect one another's preferences, okay? So there's a lot of talk, and rightfully so right now, around self-care and work-life balance, right? We can't get away from work right now because we work from home, and it's very difficult. And so there's a lot of focus on self-care and you know, not working too much or not sending emails past 8 at night or what have you. But everybody is different, right? And some leaders I talk to are saying to me, you know, Nicole, I get the work-life balance, but I am more stressed when I don't finish what I need to finish in a day. And if that means I need to work till 10 at night, I'm going to work till 10 at night. And I just need people to trust me that I'm taking care of myself. And so there is a balance, and we do need to respect that people, you know what's best for them. And so this team felt that they need to respect each other's work styles, and that some people like to work late at night, but those people who like to work late at night understand not to expect a response from the team members who choose to shut off at 6 and not respond till 8 the next morning. Okay, so it's a respect of work styles. We agree to be patient with each other and assume positive intent, right? If I'm challenging an idea, it's not because I'm challenging you personally, it's because I'm challenging the idea and want to make sure it's the right idea for this time, right? Given what we're doing. This next one, this is a team made up of different functions, and they were finding silos, right? Or territorialism and decisions sort of wanting to be made for what's best for the individual departments versus what's best for the purpose of that task force, right, and the organization. And they identified that, and they said, you know what, we need to keep what's best the organization's hat in mind, as opposed to our personal or departmental hats, and continue to come back to the common goal, because it can get lost in the busyness. We agree to adapt quickly, like we're moving fast, and stay focused on the right priorities. So let's keep coming back to make sure our priorities are the right ones, and let's respect each other's lanes, right? That goes back to roles and responsibilities. So I'm going to take a breath here, and I would love for you, if you would like to add in the chat, how is this resonating for you? Okay, what do you think about team agreements so far? And remember, you're going to get a tool to be able to lead these with your team. Okay, so I'm going to go on, and then as I see things come in chat, I'll share them with you. So what I just went through with you was some things to include in your team reset, right? Clarify what success looks like, clarify your priorities, clarify expectations, and one way to clarify expectations is to develop team agreements, all right? And you'll have a team agreement tool. The next way, thank you, Jana, lovely, making lots of sense. Teresa, never heard of team agreements before, but think that these are excellent. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Jana. Okay, awesome. So your team reset meeting is a really powerful tool, okay? The next piece that is important to cohesiveness is, and community and communication, are scheduling regular team check-ins. Now, I'm sure most of you check in regularly with your team, and I work with teams who do these differently. Some teams check in every morning at the same time for, 15 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on what they need to talk about. Sometimes those check-ins are just social, right? Absolutely just social, talking about, what's going on with their families, or how are they feeling, and just having chit chat. What did they hear in the news that's positive, right? So some of it is just social, and some of it is checking in on, okay, what do we need to know, right? How are we feeling? Have our priorities changed? And it's a way to build connection, community, and to stay focused on where the team needs to go. Okay, I'm just checking in on the chat for a second. Okay. All right, so let me give you an example of what is included, or what you could include in your daily check-ins, all right? So one team that I work with, who's a team I think of about 10, I think somebody's on that team now, but on the webinar, I think we're about 10, and we start with one-word check-ins. And a one-word check-in is exactly what it sounds, right? You start by going around, and each person just shares one word to describe how they're feeling in that moment, okay? Words can range in one, 2-minute go around, anywhere from I'm feeling awesome, right? I feel pumped, I feel excited about the week, to I'm really worried, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm exhausted, or I'm really stressed out, or I'm frustrated, right? And it's just meant to be one word. And the purpose of this one-word check-in isn't to solve people's problems, right? Or to dive deep into why somebody is feeling that way, or to immediately try and make them feel better. These one-word check-ins are just, as it says, for us to check in with each other, right? So that we know where everybody is at and how they're feeling. And so as the leader, if Sarah says her word is overwhelmed, I can check in with Sarah later and see, how are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with, right? Maybe there isn't, but at least she knows that you care, okay? It's also a way to build connection, to build trust, to build compassion within the team, okay? And it's also a great mindfulness practice, just as a means to say it and put it out there if it's not a happy feeling, and to begin to try and let it go, because you've put it out there and people hear and want to know how you're feeling. We've evolved this practice with one team, and people only share if they feel like it, right? It's not a mandatory tell me how you feel, right? It's if you want to share, then share. Then we move to a mindfulness practice is another option, where you can take 3 deep breaths together and have somebody guide you in just taking 3 deep breaths, right? A quick 60-second mindfulness practice to ground your team in the present moment, and to shed what may have been a chaotic meeting or stressful meeting prior to this one, or a stressful moment with your child or your partner prior to it. It's a way to breathe, to be centered and in the moment. And it's an important practice around self-care and modeling the importance of breath and calm. And the more you as a leader are able to insert mindfulness practices, even short ones, into your regular meetings, the more you will model and communicate the importance of calm, slowing down, breathing, and being present, so that we can let go of some of the things that are beyond our control and focus on what is within our control, which is how we're showing up in the moment. Okay, so those two ways are powerful ways to start your team check-ins, or even any meeting, quite frankly. Start it with those. Then a daily check-in can also be what's working, what's not, what's unclear, right? What do we need to touch base on? What information are you missing? This next one is one of my favorites, which is what's the word on the street. We're so used to, so many of us, being able to, walk down the hall and pick up bits and pieces. We know what other departments are doing, right? Or we'll chat with somebody at lunch or over coffee. And we're losing our spidey senses right now, right? That sense of knowing what's happening and being in the know. And so it's important to check in as a team because we all have likely different connections with different people. Say, what are you hearing? What are our customers saying? Did you, have you talked with anybody in logistics or shipping? How are they doing? Anything we need to know. So have the sort of word on the street topic. There may not be anything, and sometimes there's quite a bit. Okay. Check in on your team priorities. Maybe you don't need to do that every daily check-in, but once a week. And then I suggest once a week, check in on your team agreements, right? For the purpose of just saying, hey, how are we doing, right? And celebrating and recognizing that, you know what, we're being really patient with each other, or we feel even more united and cohesive than we ever have, right? So check in on that. And if there are any agreements that people are not living up to and it's pretty obvious and causing some maybe conflict or disengagement, just suggest, say, what do we need to do to make sure we're living this agreement, okay? And then end with a happy hour or a happy minute and ask, what's some good news somebody wants to share, right? Maybe somebody's son got into the university of their choice, or you had a fun Zoom call the night before with some friends. I don't know, but there's lots of good news out there that can be shared, and so let's share it. So that is your check-ins. Now it's also important to structure your meetings, right? At the very least, and this is all part of cohesiveness, and now I'm jumping also into group work skills, which is another element of a high-performance team. The way in which you work in your meetings, especially virtual, where we don't have the luxury of that body language or the energy that we can just pick up when we walk into a room, the more structure you need to ensure that your meetings are working effectively. Always have, at the very least, a clear objective. Know exactly what you want to achieve by the end of the meeting, and ensure your team members know that too, right? Avoid the agenda that has just 20 bullets of items to address. You're never going to get through 20 items. Focus on the most important items. This is just like setting your success statement and your priorities, right? What does success look like for this meeting? What's your objective? And what are the most important things we need to talk about or decide in order to reach that objective? And so the vital agenda that I'm going to be giving you at the end of this will help you structure your meeting, right? And ensure your agenda allows for discussion, that it's not just a download of information, that there is time for engagement, discussion, idea generation, decision making. And use video conferencing if you can, okay? And encourage people to use their videos. And always recap. So you'll have your vital agenda. So I'm going to move on from here because I'm conscious of time. The next piece is a healthy climate, okay? Your healthy climate is one that's based on mutual respect, trust, and psychological safety. Your team members are going to be engaged if they trust you. Your team members are going to be engaged if they know you trust them and value their input. And so this is all about caring, showing you care for others, and this also requires that you care for yourself. So let's start with showing trust in your team. And don't worry, we're gonna be done in 10 minutes so that we're not gonna run over. I wanna respect your time. So it's really important for you to show that you trust your team. And I wanna share a story with you, and those of you who know me know this story. And it's a story about a tightrope walker. And he was doing this huge feat of walking across a tightrope across Niagara Falls. And he chose to do it on a day that just happened to be storming. And it was raining and blustering and windy. But he made it to the other side. And when he got to the other side, his #1 fan was waiting for him. And he was so excited that this famous tightrope walker made it across. He was jumping up and down, and he said, "I knew you could do it, Mr. Tightrope Walker. I knew you could make it. Now, would you do it again? Only this time, take a wheelbarrow across with you." And the tightrope walker looked at his #1 fan and said, "Are you sure? Like, it's windy and rainy, and I barely made it across alive the first time. Do you really believe that I can make it across the second time with this wheelbarrow?" And his #1 fan said, "Absolutely. I have 100% faith in you." And so the tightrope walker said, "Okay, get in." Okay. So you are asking your team members to get into your wheelbarrow right now. You are asking your team members to cross a tightrope through this storm that we are experiencing right now called COVID. And it's windy and rainy and stormy and scary. And they will be more likely to cross through this storm, through this balancing act, when they know you trust them and when they trust you. And so part of the way of you showing that you trust your team members is giving your team members the autonomy to do their work and trust that they will get it done in their own time. I was talking to a leader a couple weeks ago who we were talking about some performance challenges, and he was saying, you know, how do I know that they're doing their work? How do I stay on top of it? And so I said, you know, if you trusted their work ethic 5 weeks ago, when you were in the office, they're the same people as they were 5 weeks ago with the same work ethics, right? But we all have more on our plate right now. And so trust that the work will get done. And if not, if you're not seeing it, then that's the time to have a conversation. But now is not the time for micromanagement. Now is the time for trust and empowerment and coaching conversations, okay? It's also important to be vulnerable and transparent and to share, you know, how you're doing, to share when you are struggling, okay, or when you are having a bad day in your check-ins, right? The more you can demonstrate some vulnerability and transparency, the more you build connection and meaningful connection with your team members. So show you care, right? Reach out and connect regularly. A simple text of, "Hey, how you doing?" or a funny joke or what have you, but reach out, and not just about status updates. Reach out to truly find out how people are doing. And in the e-course that you're going to get some information about, I guide you through how to have meaningful one-on-one conversations right now remotely, right? And what do those one-on-one conversations look like? Let's shift from your regular status update to something more meaningful that will then be carried through to an even stronger relationship when you're back at work in the office. Take time to recognize, celebrate successes every week, right? And recognize personally for individuals. Encourage breaks, self-care, and mindfulness, okay? Now, I'm not gonna go through all of the ways you can practice self-care right now, but it's really important to do so. And so if you're interested in some tools, please reach out and let me know, and I can have a conversation with you around how to do that, okay? So that was a lot of information in a very, very short period of time. Like I said, this has been recorded, and so I'm going to send this off to you. And I'm going to get to the complimentary tools for you in just a second. But before I do, I really would love to introduce you to our new e-course, where I will be guiding you through a much deeper dive and providing with you with a complete set of toolkit to strengthen, your cohesiveness, to lead exceptional team meetings. You'll have everything you need to lead a team reset meeting, to connect with team members of different departments and how to stay connected, action plans, team activities, a whole number of things. I'll guide you through how to build invincibility and vulnerability, how to have meaningful conversations, how to lead highly effective meetings. And you'll gain 2 coaching sessions with me, okay? So 2 hours of coaching that you can use however you like, one-on-one, and you can break it up into 30-minute sessions if you'd like, so you get 4. So this value is actually an $1,800 value, and we're offering it at $375 per leader. This course is launching on Friday. So if you register for the course before Friday, you will have it at $375. As of Friday afternoon, it will go up to $495. Okay, so I will send you the link in case you're interested, where you'll get to see everything that's available to you in the course. And I will be guiding you through it absolutely every step of the way. I will be there to challenge you, to encourage you, to support you, and share stories and experiences with you. And it's self-paced, so you can decide what you want to focus on. Okay, so if you just want to focus on getting your team connected to their success and identifying priorities and all of those good things, developing your team agreements, you can start there. If you want to strengthen your team's climate and build trust and respect and have meaningful conversations, you can start there. If you want to focus on your meetings, you can start there. It's a choose your own adventure. Okay, so I will leave it at that, and now I will get to your team tools. So if you go to, and I'll send you the link as well, kann.co, you'll see it here in my nav bar, /team tools. You will see you have your ebook, which gives you an overview of each of the 7 elements of a high performance team. You have your facilitator guide on how to lead team agreements. You have the vital agenda, okay, your agenda template. You also have a tool called the 10 biggest team development mistakes, right? What to avoid doing in leading team development. This checklist is one of my favorites, right? When we lead teams, it's just the little things that make the biggest difference in their performance. And so this gives you a list of the things you should be doing regularly to lead high-performing teams. And then finally, while COVID isn't a change initiative, so to speak, there's a lot of change happening. And so this is your change preparation checklist. How do you engage your team members in change in a way that will result in them being more open and flexible and responsive and not feel so overwhelmed? Okay. So let me just go back to my slides here. So that is the webinar. I am going to, and your tools are here. There's the link to the tools. I'm going to stay on for a few minutes because I see a couple of questions in the chat that I'm going to address. But I would love for you to reach out if you have any questions. I'm always happy to chat. Please use your tools. And I would really love for you to sign up for the deeper e-course if that's something of interest to you. I'll send you a link, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm really so excited to help you on this journey and give you all the tools that you need. Okay, so I wish you all the best. I'm going to stay on. I see a couple of questions. So I have a question from Jeremy that I'm going to answer. So how can I use this information if I'm not the assigned leader of a team? That's a fantastic question. And so, you know, this is also all about, as a team member, right? It's our responsibility to bring ideas to the team on how we can be even better than we already are. And so one way to do that is to say, hey, I was just on this course. You can even say great course if you think it's great. I just took this course, and I heard about and learned about, you know, this agenda that will really make a difference to our meetings. What do you think about starting to use that? Or what do you think about starting with a one-word check-in, right? Bring it forward to your team as an idea to be even better, right? And that's our responsibilities. Part of team members' contribution. Remember, I shared with you those 7 elements. Team members' contribution, part of creating a high-performance team, it's not just the leader's responsibility, it's each and every one of our responsibilities. And part of that responsibility is bringing forward new ways of doing things. And so I would bring it forward as a suggestion. Hey, I heard about this. It's a best practice. What do you guys think of giving it a try? Or bringing it forward to your leader, or even in a team meeting. Okay, I'm just going through. That was a really great question. I hope that helped. Yeah, and you can do the same with team agreements, okay? You can do the same. All right, any other questions? Please pop them into chat if you do. I'm just gonna check the Q&A. Doesn't look like it. Okay, so my email address is at the bottom of these slides. Feel free to email me. I will follow up with you with the link to the recorded webinar, the slides, and the tools tonight, as well as your link to the e-course. And if you have any questions, please reach out. I would love to continue the journey with you. And if not, go and use these tools, and I'm always here to answer any questions. All right? Okay, thanks so much, everybody. Have a fantastic day. Oh, here's another chat. Oh, you're welcome, Jana. You're welcome, Teresa. Oh, Teresa, I wonder where you are. It sounds like it's early where you're from. Thanks, Rita. I feel like it's romper room. Remember that? When you, I don't know if that was the right where you say everybody's name. Oh, Brisbane. Awesome, Teresa. That's great. It is early in Brisbane. Well, I wish you all a fantastic rest of your day and start to your day as well, no matter where you all are. Take good care, everyone.